This is Real Talk, the Customer Insights Show with Jenn Vogel, a top-rated live stream and podcast in the market research and insights industry. We're live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Join Jenn and her guests for this live discussion around topics that will help you understand your customers better. Also available on podcast channels. This live stream is presented to you by Voxpopme, the leader in video research and ranked #1 in qualitative research by Grit 2 years running. Here's today's live conversation.
Hello, insights professionals, marketers, and everyone who wants to understand their customers better. I'm Jenn Vogel, and I've got some great news. Thanks to our knowledgeable guests and our awesome viewers and listeners, Real Talk is a finalist for the Market Research Podcast of the Year. The winner is determined by your vote, so I hope we will get yours. Please right-click on the link in the notes and remember to cast your vote today. Thank you. Let's get going. With today's episode, I'm excited to chat with Voxpopme's Director of Product, Niamh Jones, and Product Marketing Manager, Betsy Nelson, to talk about customer interviews and how to use Zoom. Welcome, Niamh and Betsy.
Hi, Jenn. Thanks for having us.
So excited to have you guys on today. We're all feeling a little wild on a Monday morning, so everybody listening, just strap in for this fun chat. So before we kind of kick off and talk about how you guys are doing customer interviews here at Voxpopme, I'd love to hear a little bit about your roles in the company. Betsy, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, so first of all, Jenn, thank you so much for having me. Very happy to join Real Talk today. My name's Betsy. I'm a product marketing manager. That's a fancy way of saying my job is to go into an organization and help them discover their customers better. So sometimes that means understanding them through research. Sometimes it means things like doing customer interviews over Zoom. And my job is to help them get their jobs done in the way they want to. Sometimes that means faster. Sometimes that means more cost efficiently or more effectively, whatever it is, get to know them and help them do their jobs easier. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you again. And looking forward to chatting everything customer interviews with Zoom.
Awesome. Niamh, over to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do here at Voxpopme.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so as Jen said, I'm Director of Product here at Voxpopme, so I'm responsible for understanding our customers, their drivers, motivators, pain points, and then determining how our tech can help to alleviate or elevate our customers. I work closely with cross-functional teams here, so whether that's cross-design, engineering, product marketing, and part of my job is spent in discovery mode, understanding our customers, having those conversations and then disseminating those learnings back through the organization. So really happy to be talking to you here today, Jen, about that very topic.
Awesome. I love having a kind of chat, an episode, an interview with the two of you who are really focused on, how we're driving customer value. That ultimately, regardless of what the product does or, what our business goals are, that your guys' responsibility is really making sure that that's meeting customer needs and that that's going to help us kind of as a business do better and meet our goals. And so that's why I'm so excited to talk to you guys about how we understand our customers here at Voxpopme. So you're both talking with customers all the time. Maybe tell us a little bit about the process for talking to customers, how you determine who to talk to and the kind of the different ways in which we capture that customer feedback.
Yeah, I guess I'll start and then maybe I'll hand it over to Niamh because naturally product marketing and product, we do have different goals. They do align often, but when I'm deciding who to talk to on the customer side, I really look for those organic pauses in that customer journey. There's lots of times that our wonderful customer success team at Voxpopme is already talking to customers. So I love to tap into those moments. But Jenn, yourself and I have worked on bringing that even further and talking to customers before they're even customers. So really talking to the market in general and deciding how we can best talk to them. In Voxpopme's case, we definitely start off early. So before a customer is even maybe introduced to a Voxpopme salesperson, they go through some surveys. We have this wonderful pain survey that I mean, I have to shout out Jenn. You were the queen of the Voxpopme pain survey, and we're talking to them about what pains do you identify with, and how can we help you solve those pains. But we also have in the middle of that the win-loss survey and win-loss customer conversations, which Niamh and I both are huge backers of. And then throughout the rest of the customer journey, we also have that NPS element of it, that customer success might be the lead on NPS, but we're definitely working with them to bring out some customer interviews when they might have a customer that has a specific question for product. We can always slip in for example, win-loss question along the way. So we try not to break out customers' time. We try to add value for them as well, so that they're not just giving and giving and giving, but we're also providing something for them, whether that's some sort of training or some resource. We want to make sure it's a give and take. Niamh, do you have something to pass over to on that?
Yeah, totally. So from a product perspective, what we're looking at as well is, building on, as Betsy said, to continuously learn about our customers. So it's not just, okay, I specifically want to learn about how they're using this part of the system, or did they like this, didn't they like this? It's all about continuous, what are they doing outside of the platform? What does their day-to-day look like? What are their jobs to be done? And then how does our product fit amongst that? So it's just so important from a product side to identify those opportunities, what we're going to build next, or truly understand how our customers feel about the system today through those continued discovery conversations. And I guess we also have that sort of targeted discovery that we do. So we bring our customers in throughout the product development life cycle. We do early discovery in particular parts of the system. We bring our customers in when we're testing prototypes and getting feedback on the different iterations through that too. Not with everything, but with some things, we do a beta testing phase as well. So before releasing out to all of our customers, we do that early release, and then post-launch of new features as well. We'll capture feedback at that point. And, with that, we may be using a number of different methodologies to capture customer feedback, but those sorts of in-depth interviews or video surveys really are at the heart of how we're capturing that feedback. But yeah, going back to sort of how we determine who we want to speak to, it can be based totally on the conversation that we're having. But also, we have some customers that might have a particular keen interest in parts of the system. They've given us feedback before in that area. So we like to close the loop back with them and make sure that they know that we're listening and that we're valuing that feedback too.
I think one of my favorite things about having these interviews is we have this great CS team at Voxpopme. So if we reach out to them and say, hey, who really loves sharing show reels with Voxpopme? They usually have a list of ideas of customers. Oh, well, if you want to improve that experience, talk to these people. And we have so many notes on their experience, and we can obviously look at the data behind that experience, that you can go into that customer conversation a little bit more informed. You're not just, hi, how's it going? Just having a very open conversation, but rather, hey, I've seen you use this section of the product. You've used this a lot. You maybe haven't used that a lot. Tell me about that experience. Tell me your experience so far, and going from a place of data rather than just popping in and saying hi.
That's it. And I think it helps us to have those more valuable conversations as well, because we go into the conversation and we're not spending the first 10, 15 minutes tell us all these things that we may or may not already know. We can go in with here's all the conversations we've had with you before, here's usage on the system, and we can go in with sort of more informed questions to get more out of that time, because it is such precious time we have with customers to really get the most out of that.
That's one thing that I really love, how Niamh does that prep, because there will be, before we go into a customer conversation, there'll be this document of all that information with some links. So you can look at that as you go through that conversation. But also if you do 5 minutes, 10 minutes of prep beforehand, you really feel like you get to know the customer even before you get to actually talk to them. So you feel like you have this primer of who this person is and how they use the system.
I love hearing about that process, because it sounds like, I love what you said, Niamh, about the value of our customers' time, and really that cross-functional collaboration that we foster is like helps us to make the most of that time with the customer. Because like you said, there's a lot of different people in the organization who are talking to customers in different ways. Betsy, you talked about the kind of natural pauses in the customer journey where we're capturing feedback in different ways. And just for the audience, I mean, some of the stuff we talked about, or Betsy talked about, like the pain survey and the win-loss survey, like those are all different methodologies, right? They're not all Zoom interviews. We've got quant surveys that go out earlier stage. We have video surveys where, we're actually using the Voxpopme technology to capture video responses from our customers. And then later stage might be those Zoom interviews and those one-on-ones. But yeah, just really like making sure that we're not asking the same question more than once, or we're not trying to capture information that they've already shared with us. If we can share that internally with each other through, the different cross-functional collaboration, then we're able to get much closer to the customer and really understand their needs better, also while respecting the value of their time. So you talked a little bit about the prep work, but Niamh, maybe you could talk about how you structure the conversations that you're having with customers.
Yeah, totally. And I guess this is another one that's like kind of dependent on the type of discovery that we're going to do. We spoke a little bit about some of the prep work where we're looking at user behavior analysis, what's gone on in the system, what we heard from them already. We always like to start the conversations that we're having sort of regardless of the type of discovery, getting to have the customer explain to us, like what's their job role, what does the organization look like what are the problems they're facing at the moment, just to get us up to speed on that and just for our own background as well. And we tend to have a little bit at the start of the call, like we'll have that very structured document, but really like our customers are going to come to that call going, okay, I know I'm talking to product marketing at Voxpopme and I want to talk to them about this thing, like I've got this pain in this part of the system, or I want to know, are they working on this type of technology? So tend to just sort of offer out, is there anything that you want to talk to, make sure they've got the space at the start to get that out so we can address anything early on. I guess the other thing we do sort of right at the start of the calls is kind of, set the scene that our feelings won't be hurt, like don't worry about it. Just like be as brutally honest as you want, because that's going to help us make a better product. So really kind of trying to take away any barriers within there too. And then I guess from there, it's dependent on the conversation. So if we're sharing prototypes, we'll share it at that time. If we're doing open-ended discovery, we'll have some questions prepped, but then, we just want to see where the conversation goes. We'll have a little bit of a steer, but really, you never know what you're going to learn when you jump onto these calls. So we have that. And then the main sort of other thing that we always do is we always record those calls. So, whether they're, through Zoom, we're able to access those after the fact and then utilize that content after the case, and not just having like our chicken scratch notes down. So we can take time to like have that conversation instead of like meticulously doing that. So yeah, don't know, Betsy, have you got any bits you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think while Niamh takes a lot of time on like the product usage side of things, I'm mostly on these customer calls with the idea of what are their wider organizational problems that they're facing right now. So that's one thing I really like to ask with the primer of, we probably aren't going to solve this problem, but what is really keeping you up at night right now? So sometimes that'll be like, oh, we're really down this quarter, or whatever it is, just so that you can understand, okay, what is their largest organizational problem? What are they really looking to solve? And often there is a part of our product that can help push the needle on that. But it also helps you build empathy with that customer and understand like, oh yeah, I've been in organizations going through that before. Like that's a lot of work, or, just opening up the conversation to understand that market a little bit better. And I also like to, during those customer conversations, definitely talk about improvements that are being made to the platform. And if a customer is, oh my gosh, I would really like that. If you get that response saying, following up on that, like, do you want early access? Would you mind taking a look at the prototype? And just building a relationship with them more than just them giving us feedback. Mm-hmm. And one element that I like to use at the end is just a blanket, what can we provide you? And just really giving that option of like, is there anything you need? And I think Niamh can attest to this. A lot of the times they're just like, and then you can offer some things like, does your team need more training? Do you really want to see some examples of some good, in our case, video survey questions? And we usually get a really great back and forth on content as well, because as a product marketing manager, product content is obviously very important, but if it's not shaped by your customer feedback, you might as well not create it in the first place. It needs to be content that is customer driven. And along the way, also, we hear so many wonderful things from customers, as Niamh mentioned, good and bad, that I usually like to ask at the end of those calls, hey, do you mind if I share those quotes internally? Hey, you said this, I wrote this down. Do you mind if I use that externally? What permissions do we need to get that we can use this and share that experience, just to make sure that you have them at a right time to use that customer quote or that customer story.
It's really interesting to hear how you guys are balancing, adding value to the customer conversation, even when you're asking for stuff, like even when you're asking for feedback or suggestions on how things can improve, or if there's a quote you can use externally, like you're still focused on where you can add value. And I also love the balance and like how you're driving empathy of like understanding how customers are feeling and their feedback as it relates to our product. Also, the broader challenges that they're facing. And this is a theme that has come up a lot in interviews on the show with other our customers, like, needing to ask questions about products, what flavor of ice cream do you prefer? Or how do you like to shop for your soda or whatever, like very product specific questions that need to be asked that are solving a specific business problem, in combination with understanding, hey, like what's going on in your life? Like what's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now? Like in order to build products and create products and experiences that meet customer needs, like that balance is so important. And you said it, Betsy, like driving empathy, like really understanding the broader business need in collaboration with the product needs, and being able to meet them there. I love hearing about that. And then also too, what you said, Niamh, about like, basically you've got this very structured kind of plan for the questions you're going to ask, but then, the customers are coming in with an idea of what they want to talk about. So this is another thing that's come up before, like make a plan, but be flexible to just meet people where they are and hear what they want to share with you.
Yeah, totally. And we've had like on customer calls before, it's been like, the view has been, this is mutually beneficial for me to spend time doing this, because if I spend so much time in your product, if you're building it off of my feedback, this is worth my time spending to sort of sit and talk to you about those areas that I do want to see that improvement on. So that's been like really nice to hear, and that hopefully that extra value that customers get from spending time with us.
Yeah, 100%.
Even taking it further, when we talk to customers about that, we log that feedback. And this is my favorite part, is to go back to them and say, hey, you gave us this feedback on X, Y, and Z. We actually made changes in our product based off of that feedback. Check it out. Yeah. And that you're closing the loop with that customer. You're letting them know that their time was really valuable and that they helped contribute to the product, and it probably made their life and their job easier. So that's my favorite, is getting those response email like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, because we closed the loop in that customer conversation.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of companies struggle with, from what I'm hearing, in these conversations is, how do you close the loop with customers? And I think for us, it is a little bit easier. We are not, we're not Pepsi, we're not P&G, we're not these like kind of massive consumer organizations. So it might be a little bit easier for us to close the loop, especially one-on-one with customers that we're talking on a regular basis. But I think a lot of businesses really struggle with that. But it is so key to be able to at least let people know we hear you, we're listening, and we're making decisions based on your feedback. And like you said, we valued your time. This was worth it for us to have this conversation with you, and we made changes based on what you've shared with us.
Yeah, and to be clear, sometimes we get to do the fun conversation of having a follow-up call and actually saying that face-to-face. But a lot of the times we're using the systems we already have in place to process customer feedback to automate that experience. So we have a list of customers that have mentioned a certain features or an area of the product. We know that they've contributed, and we're sending out an automated email from our product team saying, thank you for this feedback. It was super helpful. We've made these changes. Here's a link to view more, so that you're not necessarily, as much as we'd love to have that many customer calls, it's not scalable, like you mentioned.
Sure. So what are some of the ways that you automate and kind of segment that feedback?
Yeah, we have a bunch of different ways that we process feedback. Obviously, we use the wonderful Voxpopme platform that you can actually search in there to see if they've mentioned, our customers have mentioned a certain area of the product. But we also use outside tools. Our biggest product feedback tool is ProdPad. When we have customer calls, often the person who isn't talking will be typing things and adding it into notes or into ProdPad, saying, this customer during this call said they would really like to be able to do this, this, and this, tagging it with that area of the platform so that we can search later and get all that customer feedback. So we check that system, and we also check our support system as well. So if there has been tickets that mention that area of the product or that specific feature, that we can pull out the email from that support ticket and message that person as well. And there was the topic of, hey, do we really want to be messaging people who maybe aren't our customers anymore about that feature or that part of the platform? And I would argue that the answer is yes. Not only as another touch point, but to let them know that, hey, we listened. It might have taken us longer than you guys wanted to, but it was a complex item, and we've actioned off that feedback. And I think that's important too.
I think what's cool as well about some of the tools we use is they're not just for product purposes either. Like, anyone internally can access this feedback on these conversations that we're having. So like, it's all about disseminating out the things that we're learning. So in the same way, we can see, okay, customer success had this call with this customer and this is what they learned. Okay, well, we're having a call with them. What can we build from that? They can, in the same way, in quarterly business reviews or just monthly catch-up calls, whatever those communications are, say, okay, I know this customer gave this feedback. What have the product team done with that? Are they progressing it? They can see, like, at what point through the product development process these different features are. Is it coming up for early beta release? Can I mention this? And then that helps with those conversations as well that we're not part of, but can potentially, just help with that feedback loop.
I think that data transparency is really key with, the democratization of research, as everybody is capturing customer feedback across all areas of the business, marketing, product, customer success, sales, the executive team, like everybody is talking to customers, and being able to see that, what other people have captured in other methods or other conversations is really key, and having kind of single places where you can access that stuff. And obviously we've got, data sharing tools and Confluence documentation, which is a lot of fun to dig through sometimes, but just making sure everybody's got access to that is really key. And I guess, like, how do you, with so much information and everybody having access to everything, how do you share internally the stuff that's really important to make sure that people are paying attention? Because sometimes there's too much information, right? Like, if I'm not proactively going and seeking out the customer feedback from a specific call with a specific customer, I could probably miss something with so much available to me. So yeah, how do you guys share that feedback internally?
So I guess,
start with this one.
yeah. And I guess not to go on that, it depends too much, but I guess it depends on the type of call we're having. So if we've just got off a call and we've had just some really exciting or a great bit of feedback where I'm like, we need to share this pretty much straight away with the internal team. So especially feeding back to engineering or design or those business functions that may spend a lot less time in the room with the customer. So bringing that back, we'll always, because we've recorded it, we've loaded it into the Voxpopme platform, we'll create these mini show reels and then we'll share them out via Slack, which can be a little bit busier, but when there's something that's really I'm just excited to share, I want to try and get that out as soon as possible. Whereas if we've got things through different parts of the process, it will come into those iterative steps as well. And something that, and I'll hand over to Betsy to talk to us about, we've got a exciting new initiative going on to try and disseminate that feedback out further and in a more continuous way, which is our internal podcast, which Betsy will hand over to you for.
I mean, obviously the internal podcast is, to say that we're hype is not giving it its due justice. So we have a bunch of different ways that we love to share content, because just like our customers some like to read and some like to watch videos and some like to interact with a web page, employees are the same way. So we're trying to get that information out in as many mediums as possible. So one of those new mediums is our internal podcast, The Wheel of Feedback. There is actually a spinning wheel because this is Niamh and I doing this, so it has to have some sort of gimmick. But we're taking a really short amount of time to just chat about one element of customer feedback. So that might be information from the pain survey, like some sort of trend or a new pain that is rising in popularity. That might be something like a really great quote from a win-loss call or a really great case study. But we don't want to just send those out with, okay, here's the link, enjoy. We want to also make sure that we're valuing the employee's time as well and saying, here's this on the pain survey, and also here's a report that we did on pain survey at the same time, so they come out in a bundle. And this might be the product marketer in me, but I love the go to market, and this is kind of go to company, but we're taking the same strategy where there might be a feedback follow-up piece of content. And that's really exciting. One thing that I definitely have to mention is, especially Niamh is really great about taking those customer quotes that might have stood out on these conversations and creating show reels with the Voxpopme platform in this case, and sharing them out with the larger engineering team. So these are people who don't necessarily get a lot of exposure to customers, but via these show reels and the customer quotes collected, we can bring the customer into their decisions as well. And it is so cool to be on product discussions and hearing an engineer say, well, I watched that show reel and the customer said X, because I feel like there are lots of companies that would kill to have their engineers know the customers that well that they could quote the customer and which company they were from in a meeting about a decision.
I think it's really cool as well with that is we all listen to customers and we hear things differently. We've all got our different lenses on in the different roles we're in. So even between myself and you, Betsy, we'll debrief after a call and we will have thought about different things off the back of what we've both sat through the same conversations. Just sharing those quotes out, especially with those teams that aren't sat with customers all the time and hearing the business impact of Voxpopme, you go, okay, well, they said this, and what's the root cause of this problem? And I've gone this way, and someone else gone that way, and then we can have that discussion, and then potentially follow up with some of those customers with some more directed questions as well to really get it into the root of that.
I think my favorite thing about those moments is so when you're talking to a customer, they've obviously had very personal contact with so many people at your business. They have a person from customer success that they really like and enjoy, or they had a salesperson that just like nailed their problem and helped them solve it. Those moments when you're talking via win-loss or any real customer discovery, those things are going to bubble up. And that is my favorite part about doing those customer interviews, is being able to say, hey, Jeremy, these customers love you so much. Here's a great quote and a video snippet. Or talking at the sales team, like, hey, this customer, they really loved this person, and this is why, and this is the piece of content that really, really excited them, so that we're sharing that internally and not gating that and hoarding it for ourselves. Like you said, Jen, democratizing that customer feedback is really important.
For sure. And that's some of my favorite moments, is when I hear from you guys, like, it was a horrible call. I couldn't get any product feedback because they were just talking about how much they love this person so much. And, you know, it's great to hear that stuff too. And, you know, we do have an amazing customer success team. So big shout out to them. So maybe we could talk a little more specifically about Zoom, because obviously a ton of companies, and not just researchers, but marketers, are using Zoom for customer interviews, especially now, especially over the last year. So how are we, like, you guys are using Zoom for your customer interviews. How are you tying in the conversations you're having with Zoom and putting them into some kind of format that you can analyze?
So what we'll normally do with Zoom, with the calls that we've had, and so we will, as mentioned, we're recording those calls, and then we can get those straight into the Voxpopme system via the integration, and then they're all transcribed. We do leverage the Voxpopme system in a way that we would expect customers to use the system when they're working with those sorts of like in-depth interviews and focus groups and things like that. So we are working through, we're utilizing some of the tools in there that are extracting out some of the themes, you know, that do some of the heavy lifting for us. We're, especially with things like, so from a product perspective, if we're doing like beta testing or prototype testing, we'll have those like objective questions that we want to learn, and then we will build lists based on those. So we've got, okay, when we ask customers this part, so whether it's about the functionality of this piece, we will extract out the most important parts that we've learned from that, so that when we go back into the team meetings, we have, this is what we've learned, here's the customer within there. So we're sort of working through in a bit of a hybrid, you know, we've got this content, we're working through in quite a methodological way, but we're trying to make use of some of those tools within the Voxpopme system that help with the lift as well. And as Betsy said earlier, makes all that content searchable for when we re-access that.
Yeah, I think whenever anybody is going through the long format, there is like an element of like, oh no, I'm gonna miss this. Oh, I'm gonna miss something, and you're kind of like frantically taking notes. And one of the benefits of having that Zoom integration is not only do you get the transcript and everything, but also the cutting and sharing of those videos is so much easier. So I had a customer conversation where this guy mentioned that he had lost his hair by editing customer interviews. And he was using this complex video editing software. And he's like, you see this? It's not there anymore because I've lost it all editing these long format conversations. It's gone. And he was then going on to say, and then with Voxpopme, I was literally just highlighting the transcript and adding it to a clip. And it was just so much easier that it was so fun to see this person just so happy about this. But we're kind of drinking our own Kool-Aid here, in that when we have these long conversations, it's quite easy to, as Niamh just mentioned, search a term and highlight that and get it out. Whereas if you're just taking notes, I mean, we all know the power of video in this conversation, but if you're just taking notes, you're not going to get the same, like that story. You're not going to be able to capture that guy talking about how frustrated he was that he lost his hair. Editing videos, it just takes it to a new level to be able to cut and put those together in that show reel and share it internally.
Yeah. And I think too, like you guys were saying before, like sometimes the two of you in the same conversation will interpret things differently or hear it from different lenses. Like I know sometimes I will watch back or read the transcript of a conversation after the fact, and even I'll have a different perspective on it a day later or, a week later. So being able to go back and really easily find the parts of the conversation that were really interesting and revisit them and, share them out is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And also to be able to tag them with little, like we have the theme explorer, obviously that's going to show you themes, but to also be able to tag sections of it and say like, oh, this part, they were talking about this element of the platform, and you can kind of extrapolate those tags to get a really good idea of what an experience is like.
I think as well, we utilize the like Zoom calls, but then we drink our own Kool-Aid with these video surveys as well. So like we'll use it based on what we want to learn. We'll use different types of conversations or different types of methodologies there as well. But it all goes into the same account within the system so that we can layer over our learnings together. And we can see which type of methodology the customer would prefer to do. So they want to take a survey, in their own time, out of office hours, based on when they've gone and reviewed a new feature we've released, or do they want to jump on a call with us? Whatever suits them best, we can layer it all together, and then we can analyze that all in the same way as well.
Amazing. And so anybody that's listening, if you're, unsure about how to leverage the Zoom integration with Voxpopme, then you just get in touch with us and we can help you out. Somebody on this conversation or somebody else internally can help you out with that. But this has been amazing. I love having you guys on the show today to kind of share a lot of secret sauce, internal Voxpopme secrets of how we do certain things. And now the word is out on Wheel of Feedback. Everybody's going to want to listen to that podcast, but it's internal only. It's just for us. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, same, Jen. This is awesome.
Amazing. So don't forget to rate and review our show wherever you're listening to podcasts. Remember to vote for us for Market Research Podcast of the Year at the link in the notes. On the next episode, I'm joined by Regine Gilbert to talk about accessibility. We'll see you then.